Game Week 20 is here, so it's time to lock in our FPL teams. Welcome to FPL Mate, my name is Dan. I have some big decisions to make in the new year, so let's get started with my team selection for the new game week. Okay, let's start off with my Game Week 19 scores, and I have to admit, it was a difficult one. It really was. 76 points means a small green arrow down to 190k, which is definitely not a bad rank, but I was hoping to get a few green arrows over the past few weeks, and it hasn't really happened. But some positives to be taken. Trent Alexander-Arnold with the clean sheet and the goal was very, very nice indeed. Salah continuing to perform. Rodgers doing very well indeed in his fixture, and Isak, well, he's Mr. Reliable. But I can't help but feel I was a little bit unlucky with some of my picks. Sarr and Enzo in particular, and we're going to cover this in a little bit more detail later on in the video. I think we're extremely unlucky not to get on the score sheets in Game Week 19, and I think going forward they will do well. But we will talk about that, like I said. But there are some other areas I feel I maybe wasn't as unlucky. Maybe benching João Pedro wasn't the greatest idea. I don't know. I feel like he has been performing poorly and his assists were a little bit lucky, but at the same time, I do judge myself a little on that one, particularly in comparison to Jackson, who was benched. And there was always a possibility he was going to get rested in this game week. Again, we will cover Jackson going forward, but I kind of have to take that one on the chin. That is not bad luck. That is just something that was very, very possible to happen, that Jackson would be benched for game week 19 against Ipswich. Lewis Hall may be an error of judgment on my part, as Manchester United had just failed to score in 2 games back-to-back. So maybe I could have played Hall in that game, particularly as Newcastle are doing so well defensively at the moment. So that one, misjudgment, but Sarr unlucky, Enzo unlucky, and to be fair, the Arsenal defence to only really concede 2 shots on target and in general defend really well in that game against Brentford. I feel they were a little unlucky not to keep a clean sheet as well. Really well taken goal from Mbermo, however. So in general, some ways unlucky, other ways maybe error in judgment. I don't want to beat myself up too much overall, and I think particularly as we can see by the points on my bench, my squad is still very strong and we could definitely still do a lot of things with the players that we already have. That said, we do have some free transfers that I do want to spend. But before we spend them, you've got a yellow card because you haven't liked the video yet. If you don't want to get a red card, make sure you do drop a like on the video right now. Let's move on to my Game Week 20 team. So we have 2 free transfers and 3.8 million in the bank. Yes, quite a lot of money to spend right about now, and I intend to spend it. I don't want to keep money in the bank any longer, and I have some ideas on what I can do to really improve my team, and I think that is the key here. So let's start off in goal. We have got Raya, and obviously he did fail to keep a clean sheet last game week, but he seems to be getting a clean sheet every other game week. What we see with Arsenal's defensive numbers in general is that they are brilliant. 6.5 non-penalty expected goals against over the past 10 game weeks means that they are expected to keep clean sheets very, very regularly in at least half of their fixtures, which is, I think, good enough for any goalkeeper in the game of FPL. I think Arsenal, even in the more difficult fixtures, should do absolutely fine here. And Brighton, a team very much out of form. I'm not sure if they will be scoring against Arsenal this week. Next up, we do have Trent in the defence, coming off the back of a brilliant goal. It's so nice to see Trent getting back on the score sheets with some attacking returns. And what we have seen actually over the past 6 game weeks, looking at those expected goal involvements among defenders, there are 6 players currently tracking at 0.3 expected goal involvements per game. So we're looking really at players who we expect to get an attacking contribution of some kind every 3rd game. And it does help when these players play for good defences. Now, one of the players is Saliba, based on the little fluky run he did go on. Gavardio is obviously brilliant. Munoz is there as well. He's brilliant for attacking returns as well. But completing the top 6 is Lewis Hall and Gabriel. So we're looking at some really nice attacking defenders, and I have 3 of them in my squad already. And we mentioned Gabriel. Let's talk about him again. Doubled up still on the Arsenal defence, and I think I will stick with the double Arsenal defence for a little little bit longer. Brighton, I think, is a fine fixture given current form, and that Spurs fixture as well. Don't love it for Raya, but for Gabriel in game week 21. We know Spurs do have a real weakness against those set pieces and those aerial threats, and Gabriel should be able to perform there. But the next target is Brighton, and every game week, no matter who the opposition is, you always back Arsenal for a clean sheet. They're always going to have some of the better clean sheet odds in the Premier League. We will have a look at the clean sheet odds as well. So you can see Arsenal with their away fixture sit at 33%. So a 1 in 3 chance of a clean sheet according to these odds, which is, yeah, reasonably good, quite good. There are some teams with slightly better odds though, including Liverpool playing at home against Manchester United. Manchester United, of course, failing to score in each of their past 3 Premier League games. So Liverpool will fancy their chances in this one, I think. And there are a few other opportunities here for clean sheets, which we will go through, starting off with our next defender. So take note on this projected clean sheet odds, I suppose, and look at Bournemouth. 36% chance of a clean sheet against Everton. And who do we have in our team? Well, it is Kerkez, a guy with attacking threat playing for a Bournemouth team who is currently sitting reasonably high in the table of best defenses as well. If we bring up the best defenses again, guys, we're flashing a lot of images on your screen today, guys, but I do want to take a few notes on a few things. Arsenal and Liverpool are on top. We spoke about Newcastle being a really strong defense as well at the moment. Everton played one less game, but 9.7 non-penalty expected goals against is very, very strong. But after that, we do see Wolves in here. So I do just want to highlight this to you guys a little bit. Wolves, because they have conceded a few penalties, we see for their non-penalty expected goals against over 10 game weeks, this includes pre-new manager, and their defensive numbers are actually looking reasonably good. But certainly Bournemouth are up here near to Nottingham Forest, so I think Bournemouth can be considered one of the stronger defences in the Premier League right now. They're currently tracking above the likes of Man United, Chelsea, even Fulham, Crystal Palace we've had a look at recently as well. So there's lots of positives to be taken here. But let's move on into the midfield next anyway, because Kerkez against Everton, I think we can all be pretty hopeful of a clean sheet there, and you never know when you're going to get the attacking returns. But Mo Salah is in this team still. Manchester United at home, one of Salah's, if not Salah's, favourite opponent in the Premier League. He always does so well in this fixture, particularly at Anfield. So this could be absolutely brilliant for him. We've got Cole Palmer here as well, away against Crystal Palace. Palmer has disappointed a little bit recently, but he hasn't been short of chances. He's getting plenty of chances to score, and he's been super creative for his teammates as well. So I think, again, Salah, Palmer, these are players you just back in any fixture, kind of like the Arsenal defenders. You just back them no matter who they play, and they make up the spine of your team. And outside of that, that's where we start to get a little bit more creative. And there's 2 players people are very worried about right now who happen to be in my team. The first of which is Ismaila Sarr. He plays against Chelsea at home. By the way, Chelsea are dropping down the table for those defensive numbers. They're conceding quite a lot of chances at the moment. And I do think Crystal Palace definitely do have a chance to go at Chelsea and get something from this game. Not necessarily winning the game, but goals are certainly on the cards. And we've also got Enzo Fernandez on the other side of the pitch. He plays against Crystal Palace away from home, so a little bit tougher for him playing that away fixture, I suppose. But both of these players are players who are super unlucky in game week 19, and this is not just me saying this is not me just trying to cope or anything like that, but I wanted to show you this. So what we have on screen, guys, is the expected goal involvement table for game week 19. So which players had the highest expected goal involvements? That's their XG combined with their X assists here. So, of course, we're going to see Salah on top, 1.9 expected goal involvements for him in game week 19. But we see Sarr in 5th place. 1 expected goal involvement. He took 3 shots, 1 big chance, also created 4 chances for his teammates. If you watched the game of Crystal Palace, you might have seen Sarr went one-on-one with Ramsdale, who pulled off a phenomenal save to deny him. But Sarr's creativity and his shooting was really good in that game, and I think shows a lot of positivity when we're looking for future FPL returns. These are the kind of positive signs we look for when we're trying to make decent predictions about the future. And we see Enzo not far behind him here as well. 0.9 expected goal involvements in game week 19 despite failing to actually deliver. And that was mostly due to his key passes. 5 key passes for Enzo in Game Week 19 was the most of any player in the Premier League during Game Week 19. So super creative. The most notable of which, I suppose, was the set piece routine where he laid off the ball to Palmer, who ended up hitting the woodwork. So these two players, I honestly do think were just very unlucky. If you do have them in your team, I would not be panicking. I think there is plenty of positive signs for each of these players that they can return in the future. And if we want to take a longer look at their stats over a slightly longer period of time, what we can see here is that Enzo and Sarr among midfielders in particular, looking at those, I don't know, sub-premium midfielders, Enzo and Sarr both really high on this list for expected goal involvement over the past 6 game weeks per start, both tracking around 0.5, which is actually very strong indeed. In fact, when we look at some of the top players, you know, we've got Bowen at the top here, who is unfortunately going to be injured for a month. We've got Bruno and Foden up here as well. Gordon is a really interesting one, but I think we need to come back to him a little bit later. There's your first hint on transfers. But let's move to the forward position anyway. We've got Isak, first of all, who, as we know, is just untouchable right now. He's about to face this Spurs team who are missing so many defenders, now missing a doggy as well, in addition to Van de Ven, Romero, and Vicario, of course. So this could be very extreme for a Newcastle team this in form, playing against the Spurs team, who genuinely are right now one of the worst defenses in the Premier League. They are conceding so many chances. We've got Jackson here as well. Some people will be worried about him, but it's the same as always with Jackson. When Chelsea have fixture congestion, a lot of fixtures in short periods of time, Jackson has been rotated during these times. And when Chelsea play 1 game per week in the Premier League, Jackson plays every game. And that is going to be the case moving forward now. And I'm not concerned about Jackson's minutes moving forward. I know it has happened a few times because we've had a few midweek fixtures in the Premier League. That's not going to happen for a while now. And you know what? Even if it did, the experiment with Nkunku playing up front did not work. Maresca is not going to take that chance again, given it went so poorly, and how it's clear to see how important Jackson is to the way Chelsea set up in attack. So I'm not concerned at all with Jackson moving forward. I'm not going to panic sell him, just like I'm not going to panic sell Sarr or Enzo. You can't get FPL points every single game week. Sometimes things won't go 100% your way. However, that doesn't automatically mean the player is a bad player. The same can't be said about João Pedro, and this is what's interesting. João Pedro actually did return in Game Week 19, but he's been pretty poor, pretty disappointing in general. So this is not my bias from my players, because I don't have that bias for João Pedro. I have had, I've been hyping up João Pedro in the past, but right now, I have to be very direct and say Brighton are in awful form. João Pedro got 2 assists, but they were from pretty, lucky scenarios, I suppose. One of them, the ball barely touched him. It just kind of grazed off him. And the second one, he kind of flicked the ball on very beautifully, but Lamptey scored a wonder goal from that touch that João Pedro provided there. But if we look through the numbers here among forwards, and I think this is where things get pretty interesting. So we can see from among forwards, and again, we're looking at expected goal involvements over the past 6 game weeks. This is among forwards. Per start, Isak, 1.1. That puts him in second place behind Watkins, who's only started 2 games during this 6 game week period. And in both of those games, he scored penalties. So the numbers are a little bit confused by that. The stats don't tell us everything. We have to use them within context, and therefore you do have to take Watkins being top of this list with a little pinch of salt. After that, we see Vardy and Haaland, then Gabriel Jesus, who over the past 3 game weeks has been doing really well for Arsenal. League Cup as well, scoring that hat-trick against Crystal Palace. After that, we see Havertz here, who is potentially ill. I know the feeling, Havertz, believe me. And we've got Jackson here as well. So we spoke about Jackson. His numbers are still really good. Whenever he starts, his numbers are very good. 3.5 shots per game. That's the same as Isak. 3 shots in the box per start. That's even better than Isak. But if we take a look way down the bottom of the table, João Pedro, 20th here for expected goal involvements per start among those forwards. This is not what we want to see. It really is not what we want to see at all. And therefore, I think João Pedro is possibly a player to sell, particularly when you consider that the next fixture is against Arsenal, which is a really tough one. And by the way, on that note, guys, I know some people are considering Chris Wood right now, and although he has been reliable this season, for expected goal involvements, he does not even make the top 20 list. So just a word of warning for any potential Wood buyers. If you fancy some Wood in your life, well, I just wanted to put that one out there for you. But anyway, back to these forwards. Isak, very good, of course. Jackson, I think he's fine. I still think he's fine. Plenty of good fixtures to come. João Pedro against Arsenal, tough fixture. Ipswich seems like a good fixture, but actually Ipswich have been, I don't know, low-key doing okay recently, and I wouldn't be totally surprised to see Ipswich actually beat Brighton, given the form of both of these teams right now. Then Manchester United away, and then Everton. So I think João Pedro is genuinely a player you can consider selling right now. So it's not a case of all players who are doing bad, they're just unlucky. Some players are just not doing very well. And João Pedro is a prime example of that. But anyway, let's go to my bench before we talk transfers. Fabianski still potentially out with his head injury, but I'm not planning on playing him anytime soon anyway. Rodgers is suspended, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would have loved to play him against Leicester at home, a team who I do consider to be one of the worst teams in the Premier League at the moment. Castagna plays at home against Ipswich, and I'd be very tempted to play him ahead of Kerkez. In fact, when we were looking at the odds of clean sheets earlier, it suggests that Fulham have a slightly better chance of a clean sheet against Ipswich. But I just see Ipswich as a team that are making good of their chances at the moment and are in good form. And I can't really say the same about Everton. They have been keeping clean sheets, but they haven't really been scoring goals at all. And I think Bournemouth, probably for me, have a better chance of a clean sheet. I don't know. What do you guys think on that one? The odds say Fulham, but I think Kerkez and Bournemouth might be slightly better. That's just my opinion, though. And when you have a strong squad, you are going to bench points, and that is that. Is there an argument to maybe play Castagna instead of one of my starting 11? Possibly. And we've got Hall here as well. I'm going to bench him again. I don't think this is the same as last game week, because as bad as Spurs are defensively, what we have to admit with Spurs is that they are a brilliant attack, and they really are. And they've been, second top goal scorers of the season so far. Only Liverpool have scored more goals this season, and it's not slowed down recently. They regularly score a hatful of goals. They just also concede a hatful of goals as well. So therefore, I think Spurs, despite their troubles, will score against Newcastle, particularly when they're playing at home. So I am happier to bench Hall this week than I was last game week against Manchester United, and we'll see if that one bites me in the bum. But anyway, guys, let's talk about some transfers here, because I got two transfers on my mind that I'd really like to make this game week. So let's talk about them. So the two players I want, really, we've already mentioned in this video. So, going back to the midfielders, I want to improve my midfield. I've got 3 super cheap midfielders. I'd like to get someone a little bit more expensive. And I'd like to start really building up all of these midfielders who have good form, play for good teams, and also have great underlying numbers. Now, if we look through this list again of the sub-premium midfielders, Bowen is out of the question. Gordon is here. Bruno, Foden, Jacob Murphy is here. Enzo Elanga and Sarr. I already have Enzo. I already have Sarr. So I've already got 2 of the top midfielders here. Then we have Gordon. I just look at this player. He's top of this list for available players of expected goal involvement. Despite the fact, he is only really, playing 5 games in the past 6 game weeks. He's still doing really well. He's back playing on the left regularly now that Murphy is taking up that right wing position. So the experiment with playing Gordon on the right is over, and I think Gordon is so much better on the left. Gordon also has set pieces, which I love from FPL assets. Having that set piece share is so useful, always gives you that extra avenue towards FPL points. His team is in phenomenal form, and I actually think there's a lot of great fixtures to be had. So Gordon is a player I really desperately want in my team. He is my transfer target #1 by far. And it's a case of who am I going to sell? Now, I'm not going to sell Salah. I'm not going to sell Palmer, obviously. Enzo and Sarr, you see, are doing pretty well statistically and were really unlucky last game week. Rodgers, on the other hand, well, he's 20th on this list. That's not bad, don't get me wrong. He's a cheap midfielder. We can only expect so much. And he has been in good form. The problem is, I look through Aston Villa's fixtures. I don't know how often I would actually play Rodgers. He's statistically a little bit worse than some of the other players that I have. So I think, in addition to that, he's slightly more expensive than an Enzo, for example. No way I'm selling Sarr. I think I have to sell Rodgers. And I know a lot of people aren't going to like that one, but I think this is the move for me. If Rodgers was available this game week, it would be a different scenario. But after Leicester, we have Arsenal, we have Everton. Like, these fixtures are not exactly phenomenal for Rodgers over the next few game weeks after Leicester. So I think Rodgers can actually be sacrificed for me. So I think that's what I'm going to do. And the other transfer is João Pedro out. He's not been performing. And who are we going to bring in? We mentioned him earlier. Let's throw it on screen, guys, for the sake of the video. And it's going to be Rodgers to Gordon. Love this transfer. And João Pedro for Gabi Jesus, the Arsenal man who has been in such phenomenal form at the moment. These are two very exciting transfers. They really improve my team. They spend the budget that I've been just saving in the bank, doing nothing with. And it creates this team which, I don't know, I really like the look of this team. It looks very, very strong indeed. We've got a little bit of everything. We've got players from the best attacks in the league. We've got great fixtures coming up for everyone. And yeah, there's enough depth for the defensive assets as well. Enzo on the bench there as well. Now, and the team looks strong, man. So let me know what you think. Is this a good use of 2 free transfers? Gordon just looks like a super obvious transfer. There will be debates on who to sell, Enzo or Rodgers. People will naturally sell Enzo because Rodgers was the guy who scored the most points last game week. But I think I would prefer to sell Rodgers. And Jesus, a little bit of risk there. Is he going to be good long term? I don't know, but I want to catch the player who is in great form with great fixtures from that attacking perspective. So I think it makes sense for what I want to do with my team right now. And yeah, like I said, I think it makes my team look very, very strong indeed. But of course, guys, let me know what you think. Captain's armband is going to be on Salah, of course, against Manchester United. How can we resist? And we've got Cole Palmer with a vice-captain here as well. Though I would be tempted with Isak with a vice-captain, but I think we're going to go for reliable minutes for the vice-captain, man. That's what I tend to do. Captain, you go on whoever you think is going to score the most points. And for vice-captain, you just pick a very reliable player. And Cole Palmer is probably going to be that guy, isn't he? So there we go, guys. That is what my team looks like. 2 free transfers spent, 0.3 million remaining in the bank. Team value still very strong. And I think that will only improve as more people start to move towards the likes of Gordon and Gabi Jesus. I'm sure these guys are going to be very, very popular very soon. I just want to go in slightly earlier on both of these players. On the Fantasy Football Hub My Team tool, these 2 transfers bring my team rating to 99%, which is really, really nice. Shows that my team is backed by data. Analytics FC, football is played on spreadsheets, etc., which is, it's positive to see. And I think actually when we see the data continue to adapt to the minutes of Jesus and Jackson and account for those a little bit more, then this could go even higher. We could get this team rating to 100% as well. But we're trying to preempt things a little bit, get ahead of the data, get ahead of the trends a little bit with certain picks, which I think is always very useful when trying to improve your rank in FPL. But it's looking good right now, guys. Of course, if you want to check out this tool and all of the other tools, we used a lot of Opta stats in this video, and those were all from the Fantasy Football Hub website. I use these tools all the time to sort through players, look at the numbers and stuff like that. You can get full access to all of these tools completely for free via Fantasy Football Hub. Just use the link in the description to get started straight away. But that's it from me today. Any other FPL questions, let me know in the comments. Like the video, do subscribe, and I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.